I'll be demoing mostly what we have launched around almost 3 months ago, on March 10, 2021, which is a protocol co-developed by Kleros, which is an arbitration service built on Ethereum, and Democracy Earth Foundation, which is the organization I preside as, where we do research trying to understand what democracy looks like in the information age. And one of the biggest hurdles that at least us at Democracy Earth we faced through every single pilot that we have done of digital democracy over the last 7 years is that ultimately one of the biggest roadblocks that we need to get over is understanding the issue of identity, the challenges of identity. The fact that we don't have a way of formalizing human identity over decentralized networks is what has been preventing democratic governance from emerging in a network like Ethereum. So alongside with the Kleros, we worked throughout the last couple of years on proof of humanity. I'm gonna show my screen now. So proof of humanity is a protocol that allows the creation of a list of humans, and it prevents the presence of robots, civils, and authorities in this registry, in this list of registry, through a series of cryptoeconomic incentives. The protocol was deployed on mainnet in March 10, and I'll go quickly straight to the demo. Here you can, if you click on start, over here, click on start, you will see the registry of proof of humanity with the latest identities or the latest humans that have registered in the system. So right now we have we're going to be reaching 7,000 humans right now, or profiles in the system, and each one of these has to submit a proof of themselves. So I'm going to go to mine, if I can find it somewhere on here, hopefully. Here I am. So this is myself, this is my own proof of humanity. And one of the first steps is that you have to do a video. On this video, you have to say a statement where you declare yourself as being a human and that you do not have a registry in this register. It's a sort of affidavit where you have to commit to the fact that you don't have another identity on this registry. So also a very important thing of the video.
City, and I certify that I'm a human and I do not have a register in this registry.
And at the end of the video, or at any moment in the video, you have to show your Ethereum address, which has to coincide with the Ethereum address that you are using on once you are uploading your identity into the system. So once you submitted your proof of identity with the video and brief information about yourself, the information does not need to be your real information, just something that helps you identify in the network, but that doesn't need to be your real name or your any kind of personal information. But once you become verified, someone else has to vouch for you. Someone that has been previously verified by the system has to vouch for you. Once you are vouched, well, once you receive a vouch, you will have 3.5 days where you'll be under where you could be challenged by someone else. So let's see some challenge registrations. So these are all profiles that have been challenged because in some aspect of the proof, they do not meet the criteria of what's required in order to generate a legitimate proof of identity. And this can be, maybe it's the address on the video does not coincide with the address that has been used to submit the profile, or maybe you are not saying the full sentence on the video, or maybe you are not showing properly the address of your Ethereum address on the video, or maybe the dimensions of the video do not fit a resolution high enough to perceive your face. So there are all these requirements that need to be met. And if you don't meet them, someone once you submit your profile and after being vouched, someone can challenge your profile. There's a window of 3.5 days where challengers have an incentive to challenge, because when you create a profile, you have to pay a deposit. This deposit, you will get it back if no one challenges you, and if you do the proof all right, you'll be able to do it. But if you do not do the proof properly, then the challenger has the incentive to use your deposit, to earn your deposit through the challenging process. Now let's check on this profile. For example, here this profile has been challenged, and it argues that the resolution of the video does not meet the criteria. So this goes to an arbitration system, which is the Kleros court arbitration system. So let's see if I can connect to Kleros here. So the Humanity Court, where is this? Products, what's going on? Well, I have to find it elsewhere here. My connection is a bit slow, but you go to an arbitration service, which is Kleros, where jurors will ultimately have the final word whether your profile is valid or is not valid on your proof of humanity. So we launched this on March 10. So far, we have almost 7,000 unique humans in the registry. Let me show you some graphs that show the growth of the registry so far. Excuse my slow internet connection. So here you can see the last 30 days. It's a bit broken, but this is from one member of the community. But you can see that it has been steadily growing throughout time. Most submissions get approved. These ones down here are on the vouching phase. These are the submissions that are still waiting for a vouch from someone else. And the challenged ones, I don't think these are listed here, but you get at least a sense of the growth that the project has been having throughout the last 3 months. So what can you do with proof of humanity? So the fact that we can build now with this primitive of a registry, a curated registry of human beings, means that we can start building social applications of all kinds. Some simple ideas around this type of applications are, for example, systems that enable democratic governance. And I'm going to demo you how we are using democratic governance today on the Proof of Humanity DAO. You can enable systems of universal basic income. And I'm going to show you how we have implemented a UBI token, a universal basic income token of Proof of Humanity. You can create systems of credit that don't require collateral. You can start building a credit score and start creating DeFi without the need of collateral and just using a reputation or a credit score for the identities. So the possibilities that a proof of identity or a registry of humans that it's built in a decentralized way are many. So we combine with proof of humanity a video proof. We want to make sure that anyone, anywhere can detect civils or can detect deepfakes or robots present in the registry. And that's the only requirement, the only information that is specifically required. We don't require your personal name, your real name, your legal name, your nationality, where you are. None of that information is relevant. We just want to enable people to be able to check the faces of those participating in the registry. You have to be careful, though, that if you're going to be using this, it's probably better to use a fresh account, an account without too much financial activity on Ethereum, just to protect your privacy, because it is true that your face will be tied to that address, and you have to be aware that probably that address will be a public address on your behalf and not a private address. So On top of proof of humanity, the first application we deployed is the Universal Basic Income Token, the UBI token. So there are a couple of very interesting features about this token that I would like to highlight. First of all, it is an ERC20, but let's go to the code a little bit. Let me show you just how easy it is to integrate with proof of humanity. So if we check into the contract code, you can see that it's a pretty straightforward ERC20 that interfaces with proof of humanity. It talks to the proof of humanity smart contract, which is already deployed on mainnet, and it asks whether an address is registered on the registry. That's it. So what proof of humanity does is that once you become a verified human, and let's see if I can find a profile here. Let's see, let's check someone. Those are already registered. These are probably the latest ones. We have one interesting thing is that we have a lot of grandparents actually earning a pension through this service. We have a lot of children also. People are putting their childs or their families into the project. So here you can see that this user is already earning UBI. So once you become verified on proof of humanity, the UBI is streamed straight into your Ethereum wallet, whether it's MetaMask or whether it's Rainbow or any of the wallets there. You will see your UBI accruing in real time over time. Right now, the issuance rate of UBI is set at 1 UBI per hour, and the current market value of UBI is around 20 cents of a dollar. So that means pretty much that we're delivering a universal basic income to these 6,000 or so people of roughly $150 to sometimes 200, 250, sometimes even more if the token price goes up a month, which is in most developing nations is even better than the pension being delivered by the state. In my country, in Argentina, that's a better pension than you might get from the government. So the token, right now we have a liquidity farming program. So we have, for those that are providing liquidity on Uniswap version 2, very soon we will have the liquidity farming contracts for Uniswap 3. Those are being developed from what I heard from Hayden Adams from Uniswap. But right now, if you provide liquidity on Uniswap version 2, if you provide liquidity with Ether or you provide liquidity with DAI, there's a liquidity farming contract that will allow you to earn even more UBI throughout the first year of the project. And this was a mechanism that allowed us to start building some liquidity for the token to be able to bootstrap itself. There's a bunch of experiments going on with the project. Obviously, if we go to Etherscan and we check the token activity, the initial supply that the token had was 10 million. Let's go to the Kleros blog, which had a very good announcement. Let me see. Here, Universal Basic Income for Humans. Here you can find more information about how it works out. But the initial supply of the token, 40% went to the liquidity mine. We minted 10 million UBI at Genesis. 4 million went to the liquidity mining program. 4 million went to the community treasury that is being used by the DAO. And 2 million, sorry, 20%, went to the pre-sale investors that participated in the project, leaving only 5% really from that 20% to the community contributors. So that was the initial allocation. So you can see that right now we actually minted 1 million tokens on top of that. If you look at the max total supply, we have now roughly 11 million. 1 million more have been minted to the users or to the verified humans that began accruing universal basic income. So a question that we get a lot is now, how we are going to be able to sustain price over long term, where there's a bunch of projects happening in the community. I'll try to demo you some of them. There's a project that we are working on called Human Money, which are Yearn Bolts, Y-Earn Bolts. We are now building on top of the DAI Y-Earn Bolt. And what this bolt does, we're still right now on testing phase. But what this vault does is that you contribute DAI to it, it earns an interest in DAI, and a fraction of that interest is used to buy and burn UBI. So this is a vault that reduces the supply of UBI with the profits generated on wire and finance. We are right now auditing and testing this vault, but so far so good. We have been able to test the burning mechanism, and if we are able to build liquidity into these vaults, we could have a very interesting instrument keeping in check the issuance or the emission of UBI to the newcomers to the system. I also mentioned the DAO. The DAO, it's deployed with using Snapshot. Snapshot allows for off-chain voting and proposing, which is very good, keeps the system very prone to free speech, which is very important. And the other aspect is that for the DAO, we are not governing this DAO with the UBI balances. We are actually governing this DAO with proof of humanity, and we actually are using a proxy contract that gives one vote to each verified human on proof of humanity. So if we go to one of the HIP proposals, which is short for Humanity Improvement Proposal, you can see that everyone is voting and everyone has one vote, right? So it's one person, one vote. As far as we know, this is the first democratic-driven DAO in all of Ethereum's history, or at least one that has significant usage and members. So this is an interesting feature in on itself. Because we are using Snapshot, delegations are allowed. So we are using liquid democracy on more recent proposals. Let's check a more recent one. I think this one might have someone with more votes. Here you can see, for example, Clement Lesage from Kleros. He has 11 votes delegated. I had 4 votes delegated. So it's a version of liquid democracy. So those that do not have the time to engage with the governance, they can delegate their vote to someone else. Obviously we have the forum where different proposals are being debated to improve the tokenomics, to improve how the protocol works, the different challenges, the different aspects that make proof of humanity possible. The community has been very creative. There's one of the contributors that created Humanity Tools, or humanity.tools, has a lot of very interesting material, but some interesting demos as well. I like this demo a lot, that checks for similar faces, and it's a nice tool if you want to find duplicates in the registry and earn a good bounty for finding duplicates. You can use this tool. So let's copy someone's address. Let's test this out live. Let's see if this works. You just introduce the address here. It can take a while. Maybe it's an address if it's not indexed, and there tries to find similar faces. We'll have to figure out if this looks. I did it with my own face, and I actually have to admit that it found similar faces to mine. So these are interesting tools that the community is building in order to make sure that we have resources that can help improve the quality of the registry of the list. So if you want to learn more about how proof of humanity works, you can obviously follow us on Twitter and in Telegram. There are 2 Telegram groups. There's the Proof of Humanity Proof Humanity without the off, which is actually the original group we had with researchers. So right now this has 25 members, and there's another one that is Proof of Humanity in Spanish that has around 3,000 members. So it's a growing community. It's been three months already, almost 7,000 humans. We try to communicate as much as possible in social media, the latest projects, innovations, demos, stuff that is being built by the community. And the purpose is trying to understand how we can leverage the incredible world computer that Ethereum is in order to deliver universal basic income at scale for every human on Earth. A couple of interesting things about the project. details or nuances about how the protocol works that are worth mentioning is that vouchers, for example, let me see if I can find a very interesting tweet from me, graph. It's with the vouchers, or with a graph of vouchers, that maybe this will be hard to find very quickly, but I think I found it yesterday. It's not here. There it is. So we have different, we have users giving vouchers to each other. This is from the early days of the protocol when we didn't have too many vouchers. But each vouch, or every vouch, is actually processed in a sequential way. So when I vouch for, let's say, 5 different people, those vouchers are not processed in parallel or immediately. It's processed one after the other, and each one takes 3.5 days, because that's the window of opportunity that challengers have to challenge one of the an identity that does not meet the criteria. The reason vouchers are processed in a sequential way is to prevent a network of spam bots from suddenly hijacking the registry and taking over the system. So the fact that when you create your identity, you have to pay a deposit, which right now it's at 0.18 ETH, plus the fact that you have to receive a vouch from someone that trusts your identity, and that vouch, will be processed, in a sequential way, and it might take, in some cases, if you ask a vouch to me, my vouch will probably take 1 month, because I have already given vouchers to a lot of users, and they are all processed in a sequential way. So my vouchers are not good for newcomers. That's why we actually have some crowd vouching groups for those that want to seek help from the community. If I remember correctly, it's UBI Crowd Voucher. This is the group on Telegram. I don't know if this is, or UBI Crowd Vouching. Maybe it is UBI Crowd Vouching. Oops, sorry, I'm having typos. So you can ask to the community on Telegram to request a vouch from someone that has not given a lot of vouchers, and you might get a quicker path to getting approved on the registry. And if you are approved, then you get your deposit back, and you are able to start accruing UBI every second throughout time. The identities are valid for 1 year. After 1 year, you have to renew. That's also a matter that is actually being debated by the community right now. And yeah, that's a quick overview of how proof of humanity works, with the universal basic income built on top of it, and with enabling using nothing but smart contracts and Ethereum and cryptoeconomic incentives. I don't know if we have time for questions, or
did you look at or evaluate using stable coins instead of the tokens fluctuating in value? Kind of, how do you think about that as being the means of the token being delivered? And I would love to kind of learn more about that decision process, or just the trade-offs rather.
Yeah, when you're building a system like this, the only variable we control is the issuance. If we were to use some kind of stable coin, or some kind of, something that could stabilize the price, we are definitely paying attention to projects that are doing that. We've been looking at algorithmic stable coins, like Ampleforth, or different kinds of projects that were trying to stabilize the price. We never expected the wild swings the token had. The token, went, it's a small cap token, and it had speculators playing with it. And of course, it's on the very early days, but we wanted to make sure we had a mechanism that fairly and automatically distributes to everyone. And with our own token, we can control that issuance rate. Then comes the challenge of, well, how we control the price, if we can control the price. We live in a strange world where Dogecoin has a market cap of $85 billion, and probably a price can go a bit irrational in these markets. but we thought that having a fair distribution, a fair mechanism that is once you become verified, you get this token, would enable a couple of interesting things. First, everyone that will be find themselves holding this token will eventually have an interest to find utility for it, and we're seeing like peer-to-peer markets. We're seeing implementations on rollups to make the transacting more frictionless. So we're seeing a community building around with it. The wire vaults, there's an Aave fork actually being built to lend the token and use future price to stabilize price in the present. So there's stuff like that working around with the UBI token. Whether the issuance, if the issuance rate, we had arguments in favor of increasing it and decreasing it, as you can expect in a community with different ideologies and different ideas. Decreasing it potentially could help boost the price. Increasing it could potentially dilute the pre-mine. So you have these trade-offs. What I believe after 3 months of seeing the project in action is that we were always able to deliver a UBI that's above $100 a month. And that's very helpful for students, for pensioners, for people in the developing world. So we were lucky with that respect, that price was always able to match a decent UBI, at least to get bootstrap the system. And if we are able to fix the issuance rate, and we just know the fact that 1 UBI equals 1 hour, like the collateral of the token is human time, then the market can, without surprises of increasing or reducing issuance, without surprises, without Shannon information surprises, the market can coordinate a price around it. That's at least our hypothesis. If the market has this predictable emission rate of this token over time to humans, then the market can decide, well, what should the value of universal basic income be? Right now, the market is saying 20 cents because of a lot of factors, because ads went down last week, because there are multiple factors. It's still very early days. But on the long term, I think that the market can work and can coordinate a price of what's the real value of UBI. And we are eager to see that, what could happen with that. It's very experimental, but we feel confident that we can take it to an interesting place as a community, of course.
I'll follow on to what you sort of already transitioned into, is just overall, obviously you've seen a lot of positive reception from your community, but what's kind of been something that they've requested for you to either add or integrate or work on that wasn't either part of the plan, or you just found you by surprise? Like, what's kind of been that reaction for the people who did not know what this is? And yeah,
look, it's been like quite a roller coaster, to be honest, the last 3 months of my life after launching this, but it's so exciting. But of course, there are we were expecting, for example, to see deep fakes. We were expecting to see people with or twins or multiple twins or people disguised. On the guidelines, we forbid using makeup, for example, to prevent that, but you never know. But the strangest thing was that apparently what the requirement for the videos is that they need to be 360 pixels wide at least. And we found out that WhatsApp actually reduces the 4 pixels from each side. So you have or 8 pixels from each side. So you have 352 pixels. And because according to the guidelines, the requirement is at least 360, and we didn't know that WhatsApp was cropping the videos that way, a lot of challengers suddenly took literal, were positivists, we could say, that took literally the words of the guidelines and started challenging profiles that do not meet the criteria because of 8 pixels. So we had a huge debate in the community whether that was right or wrong. And we had arguments on both sides. I think it's just morally wrong to challenge someone because of 8 pixels. And we shouldn't be that positivist in the interpretation of law and justice. Above all, justice is not logic. Logic is logic. Justice is something deeper. So we saw a crazy debate around stuff. That's like
very interesting. Yeah,
explaining the small wording, right, of the guidelines.
Wow. I know we're running out of time, but I'll ask one interesting question that just came from our chat, and we'll then move on to our next talk. And the question is, sort of, how do you think about proof of humanity overlapping with people wanting to be anonymous or pseudonymous online? Do you think that's either a contradiction, or like where does that kind of fit into how, I guess, we're seeing the web evolve?
No, I think it's a legitimate concern. I have a public address on Ethereum, and I have many private addresses. Probably have more private addresses than public addresses. But for most people, I'm Santi.eth. So that's me. You have it on Twitter. I decide to be public on that address. I see that that's a spectrum. And with MetaMask, I think you can wear multiple masks. That's the point of a MetaMask, right? And in some masks, you will be your public persona. In other masks, you'll be your more private or more anonymous. Proof of Humanity tries to put all kinds of warnings just to make sure that users are aware that this will be tied to a video of yourself declaring yourself as a human. You are not required to disclose any personal information or of yourself, whether your name, your address, nationality. None of that is required. You can use a fake name, fake whatever, but people need to check your face. We need to check your face just to see if there's some other human that looks like you or not, because evolution wanted this part of our bodies to work as a public key. We recognize each other in society, socially, through our faces. And it's just a fingerprint that we have, in a way of recognizing each other at a distance. And we're just simply using that fact of nature. But of course, be cautious and be aware that this is part of your public persona, probably not part of your anonymous persona on Ethereum.